Her brother needed a week on our couch. Week 27, I served him a 3-day notice. My wife said I was choosing paper over family, so I chose my own front door. Intro. He just needs a place to land for a week, my wife said, already fluffing the couch pillows like we were hosting a golden retriever. On day 186, I changed the Wi-Fi password, taped a 3-day notice to the guest room door, and found out who my wife was choosing when choosing got real. Quick intro. I'm 34M. She's 33F, married 3 years, in Northwest Houston, Cypress-ish. We bought a little brick 3/2 last year with an HEB 5 minutes away and an HOA that cares more about trash cans than crime. Main story. In March, right when Houston decided to skip spring and go straight to sticky, my wife's brother, Ryan, 27M, blew up his life. He and his girlfriend, Kim, had a screaming match in the parking lot of an apartment complex off Jones Road. She threw a plant. Repeat threw his keys. Someone called the cops. Nobody got arrested, but the landlord told them both to go. He sent Jess, my wife, a text. Can I crash for a week? Please don't loop Mom in. I was chopping cilantro for tacos when Jess showed me her screen with that look she gets, eyes big, chin tucked, like if she doesn't blink, the problem is smaller. I like her family. Her mom has a laugh you can hear from the driveway. But Ryan has always been a walking paragraph of exceptions. Charming, funny, the guy who helps you move a couch, also the guy who forgets his wallet every third dinner. A week, I said. I can be decent. That night, we dragged our old futon out of the garage and put it in the guest room because the fold-out couch in the living room made my back ache just looking at it. Ryan showed up with a duffel, 2 garbage bags of clothes, and a milk crate full of cables. He wore the same Rockets hoodie I gave him 2 Christmases ago. He hugged Jess. He hugged me too hard, like he was trying to squeeze permission out of my ribcage. Man, y'all's place is nice, he said, dropping his stuff in the entry like we were a loading dock. We like it, I said. He showered for 45 minutes. He used our expensive shampoo, which is fine once. He ate 2 tacos and 3/4 of the avocado, which I noted in a petty corner of my brain, and then shushed because I want to be better than guacamole accounting. That first week was fine. He applied for jobs. He woke up late, but he did a sink full of dishes once. He said thank you a lot. He told a story about a guy at his old job who microwaved fish that actually made me cry, laugh. He did an impression of their landlord saying, "Y'all too were a mess," in a voice we all tried to replicate later and couldn't. He slept. He showered. He sprawled. Fine. Week 2, he started borrowing my truck. It's not a fancy truck, 2011 F-150, dent on the rear bumper courtesy of a Buc-ee's parking lot, but it's my truck. He asked, "Can I run to Home Depot? I'm going to try to pick up day labor." I said sure the first time. Second time, I said text me when you're back. Third time, he said, "Why you being weird?" And I heard my own dad in my own mouth when I said, "Because it's my truck." He came back with drywall dust on the seats and a Whataburger bag in the door pocket. I didn't say anything because I was trying to not be a caricature. By week 3, he'd settled. Settled is the kind word. Occupied is the right one. He set his vape on our TV stand. He left his shoes at every threshold like breadcrumbs. He did a load of laundry that included Jess's nice sweater, which came out the size of an emotional support squirrel. He bought toilet paper once, and it was that single ply that changes you. He said he was saving, and he sent Jess $40 on Venmo with a cactus emoji and wrote "rent lol" the way people write lol to make something pass as a joke. At night, after he went to his room, Jess and I would sit on our bed with our knees touching and play couple whack-a-mole, the week's annoyances coming up and us trying to bop them without fighting. "He's trying," she'd say. We talked money. We talked boundaries. We tried to talk timeline. Every time I said, "What's the plan?" Jess would say he almost had a job at O'Reilly Auto Parts. almost as doing so much of the heavy lifting in that sentence. Small USA. Local sentence: if you've never had Shipley's Kolache warm at 6:30 a.m. in spring, you're missing a whole chapter of Texas. The first actual fight came in May. I had an interview at a place downtown that would have shaved 20 minutes off my commute and added $5,000 to my salary. I ironed a shirt. I put on the watch my grandpa left me. I grabbed my keys from the bowl by the door and no keys. I texted Jess. "Do you have my keys?" She was at school. She sent back a picture of our kitchen counter with nothing on it and 11 question marks. Ryan walked in an hour later in a ripped tee and socks, holding a Starbucks. "Hey," he said, like he lived here. "You're home." "My keys," I said. "Oh, my bad," he said, and set them on the counter. "I thought you were off." I left for the interview 10 minutes late with an armpit sweat map and the kind of tightness in my jaw that makes your fillings ring. I did okay, I think. I did not get a second round. That night, I told him I needed him to ask before taking my stuff. He said chill twice in a row, and then, "You're mad that I helped you move that dryer last month. Like, remember?" Which is the kind of conversational judo that used to work on Jess and that I was immune to that night. "That was kind," I said. "This is different." My voice had that new edge. He did that grin smirk that says, "We're all just family here." And I said, "No, we're people with doors." Jess put her hand on my arm. "Can we not?" she whispered, and there it was, the triangulation. I love my wife. She is generous to a fault. And this was the moment I realized her fault line. I printed a sheet that said house stuff like a fifth-grade teacher with a Sharpie and put it on the fridge. No unapproved guests. No borrowing vehicles. Food is hot, communal. Specialty items are labeled rent $400 per month due on the 1st. He scrawled "Lol landlord" next to it and drew a cactus. June passed like pressurized air. He paid $200 once. He bought a flat of LaCroix and claimed that offset the rest. He said a friend of a friend could get him on a crew. He left a hammer on our coffee table. I found one of my drill bits in the grass. I know this is all small. You can die by paper cuts. Then the HOA sent us a letter. "Dead patch in front lawn," they wrote, like a surgeon's note. Also, trash can visible from street on non-service days. Also, boat and driveway prohibited. We do not own a boat. Ryan parked his friend's trailer in our driveway on a Tuesday, meaning to move it by the weekend. He did not. I took a photo for my own paper trail because I could feel a court in my future. In July, everything went dumb fast. I walked into the garage and noticed my Milwaukee set looked anemic, a few pieces missing. I asked Jess. She didn't know. I checked the Ring camera. Around midnight the night before, Ryan and a guy I didn't know, tattoos up to his jaw, wipe your nose a lot, rifled through the shelves. They saw the camera. They waved. When Ryan came home, I asked where my tools were. He said, "We used them for a job. They're in the truck." They were not in the truck. "Bring them back tonight," I said. Right voice. Not yelling. Ryan did the smirk again, then a shrug. "They're safe," he said. Jess waited for me to be the bigger person because that's my role. I am tall. I could not find that person that day. "No guests tonight," I said. Also, no more people you can't vouch for. Also, no more saving that looks like stealing. "Bro, relax," he said. "Stop calling me bro," I said. "I'm not your bro. I'm your brother-in-law. I'm also the guy whose mortgage you are not paying." Jess said my name like a tap on the brakes. I said her name back like a "look at me, not the pothole." We stared at each other across a kitchen island that used to mean tacos and now meant war. The next morning, I printed a Texas 3-day notice to vacate. I set it on the counter. I put one on his door. I took a picture of both. I'm not litigious by nature, but paper is the only language some problems understand. The notice wasn't a threat. It was a sentence: "We will not be 3 adults in this house forever." Jess read it and went quiet. Not mad, not sad, quiet like the space under a bed where old socks go. "You served my brother," she said. "I served a tenant," Will I said, "because I had been on Google at 2 a.m. He doesn't have a lease. We own this house. He has notice, and we can go from there. Or he can miraculously find a room to rent because the deadline makes him resourceful." She slipped the paper into the drawer with the rubber bands and soy sauce packets, like if she put it where random crap goes, it would count less.
Ryan ignored the notice like it was an invitation to a party he wasn't going to. He brought Kim over at 11 that night. They fought on our porch. She called me Landlord Evan and laughed a mean laugh. Then she cried and hugged Jess. Somewhere in me, an organ I didn't know I had clenched. I called my friend Luis, who works nights with Harris County JP Court, to ask how dumb this was going to get. He said, "Practical, serve the notice. Document. If he's still there, file for eviction. Do not lock him out, do not move his things, don't turn off utilities. Let the constable be the bad guy." I wrote, "Let the constable be the bad guy," on a post-it because it felt like a proverb. Day 4 came. Ryan ate cereal in my kitchen like we weren't talking about the same planet. I filed the eviction online. It felt surreal to type Ryan, last name, as defendant. Jess stood over my shoulder and watched me hit submit without saying stop. I don't know what that silence meant. There are 50 ways to read it. I rotated through 10. We had a hearing 2 weeks later. Ryan didn't show. Default judgment. The judge, who wore a tie with tiny scales of justice, banged a gavel like he'd been waiting all morning to be able to do that. "You can get your writ," he said. The clerk stamped the paper like a weird little drumbeat. I felt both righteous and stupid, like I'd enrolled in a class I hadn't gone to and still passed because the teacher was tired. Jess cried in the parking lot. "This is my family," she said. "You just took him to court." "He took us to court," I said. "I just brought paper." I wrote the constable's date on the calendar. A week. We told Ryan. He said, "You can't kick out family," and I said, "Watch." He went to stay at his friend's for 2 nights, then came back and slept in the guest room like a teenager who sneaks in through the garage and thinks he's invisible. The morning the constable came, it was already 90 degrees at 9 a.m. sun in that flat way that makes you feel like a photo. The constable, a woman with a braid that meant business, knocked, announced, waited, stepped in. She had grace for everything. "Morning, sir," she said to Ryan. "Time to go." He looked at Jess. She looked at me. I looked at the paper. He packed in a way that said he would come back and unpack in 3 hours. He didn't get that chance. The constable stood in the hall like a guardian at a bridge. He went. Kim's car had a bumper sticker that said, "Manifest it." She started the engine and stalled it twice. After they pulled away, the house sounded like after a concert when the bar stools are upside down and the floor is sticky. Jess went to the bedroom. She shut the door. I sat on the floor in the guest room with a grocery bag full of the weird domestic trash we had accumulated around Ryan, bent vape cartridges, a Bic lighter with a bite mark, an orphan sock. I changed the locks. It's legal after a writ is executed. I put the new keys on the key rack. I handed one to Jess. She looked at it like it was evidence. "I need to go to my mom's," she said. "Okay," I said. She packed a duffel and left. She didn't kiss me. Update 1, 10 days later, the house felt too acoustic without 2 extra feet on the couch. I could hear the ice maker drop like a gunshot. The ring notification ping would make me tense. Every knock became a story I didn't want to read. Jess stayed at her mom's. She texted me polite, small things. Did you water the snake plant? Trash is Wednesday this week, not Thursday. Not, how are you? I sent back pictures of the plant and the trash, can buy the curb with a championship stance. We became logistics people. Her mom called me. I love you, she said. This family is generous with that word. I also love my son, and he's a person who makes choices and wants other people to bear the cost. You're not wrong to draw a line. I don't want to be right, I said. I wanted him to leave. She laughed, that big laugh, then cried. Jess doesn't know how to hold two truths, she said. That her brother is messy and that you're not cruel. Jess wanted to hit pause, those words that feel like bubble wrap, soft, safe, suffocating. Not a separation, she said over coffee at a common bond like we were closing a deal. Just space. She said we could do counseling. I said sure. She said, I'm not choosing him over you, and I said, the problem is you didn't choose at all until a lady with a badge made you. We went to one counseling session with a guy whose bookshelf made me suspicious because it was all the same color spines. He asked us to say I statements. I said, I feel like a landlord in my marriage. Jess said, I feel like you bulldozed me and then asked me to thank you for clearing the field. He nodded. He asked about boundaries and money and childhood. He asked where we learned to triage. She said her mom worked 2 jobs and she raised Ryan. I said my dad kept a whiteboard of chores like a warden. We both said we were trying to not be our parents in ways that made us overshoot into being new problems. At the end of the hour, the counselor offered homework, write down what family means to you without using the word love. On the drive home, the Beltway looked like it does when it's 4 p.m. on a Wednesday, just a slinky of brake lights. My brain felt the same. Update 2, 3 weeks later. I found the Milwaukee pieces in a pawn shop off 1960. This is not a metaphor. I walked in because I'm that guy now, I check pawn shops like a vulture who likes power tools. I saw the case. The scuffs were mine. There's a nick where I missed a nail and kissed plastic. The owner checked the intake. The seller's name matched Ryan's friend with the wipe your nose vibe. I paid to get my own stuff back because the law is an ass if you don't want to spend 6 weeks proving what you know. I texted Jess, found my tools, and sent a picture. She wrote back, oh, and then, I'm so sorry, like the words had to pass through glue. Ryan texted me, crazy how you care more about drills than people. I did not respond because there is no reply that makes that person understand that the drill is the metaphor they don't want to hear. I told Jess I needed her to move home or tell me not to wait. She said she wasn't ready. I said I couldn't be a maybe in my own house. We decided she'd stay with her mom for a month. We swapped the dog. We do not have a dog. That sentence made both of us laugh and then hurt. I went to a Dynamo game with my friend to not think about my marriage and ended up thinking about my marriage in a stadium with 20,000 people while a kid behind me ate nachos like he was trying to erase sadness with cheese. It didn't work for either of us. We lost 1-0.
Update 3, 6 weeks later, Jess's mom texted me a picture of her dented Toyota with the caption, he took it without asking. Hit a pole behind Fiesta. He's okay. I'm not. I stared at that picture for a long time. I wanted to both drive over there and fix the bumper and also never be in a room with her son again. Jess called me. With her son again. Jess called me. She cried. Sounds that you only make when the person on the other end is blood. It's like I'm addicted to being the one who fixes him, she said. He offered to mow a neighbor's lawn for money and used my card to buy gas without asking. I told him to leave. He said it was my job to be his family. What's your job to me? I asked. He came out bitter, and I apologized, but I think I needed to let some acid touch air. I want to come home, she said. I can't live with him anymore, and I don't want to live without you. I said okay. We set rules like two people who have done this part before, no family stays longer than 3 nights in a 30-day period, no exceptions. Any borrowing requires a yes. Money requests, to each other, to family, live in a shared spreadsheet with time to think, not on the water of a feeling. We put no on the menu. We added one counseling session a month, like an oil change. She moved back with 2 duffels and a bag of groceries like a reunion has to feed itself or it won't stick. We ate rotisserie chicken and watched a show where chefs yell ovens. We didn't talk about Ryan for 2 full days and it felt like inhaling after a long swim. Small USA. Local note, I promised myself I'd include again the breakfast tacos at Brothers Taco House before 7 a.m. on a weekday will make you forgive many sins. Not all. This will sound abrupt after all the hours and paper and crying. Sometimes the slow work still ends in a door. It wasn't Ryan that broke us in the end. It was the way Jess needed me to be the bad cop so she could be the good sister without admitting she'd chosen a role. It was my resentment collecting like dust in air vents I kept forgetting to replace. It was the day her cousin asked on the group chat if she could stay 2 nights while her AC got fixed, and Jess said yes before asking me. Then looked at me like I was mean for texting her no with a period. We weren't fighting all the time. We were okay, mostly. We bought folding chairs and went to a free concert where a guy sang about trains and beer and everyone knew the words. We slept better. Then Jess's school hosted a staff party at a bar in the Heights and I tagged along because the world was fine again. Ryan showed up. He hugged Jess and she froze and then hugged him back like muscle memory. He hugged me too, loudly, like performance. "We good?" he said. I said, "We're not enemies." He told a story about how he was staying with a friend in Conroe on a project. He was fine. We could rest now. An hour later, I caught him in the parking lot with Jess by the dumpster, pitching the old pitch. "Just until Friday," he said. "Kim's got this thing and I can't." Jess's face did the math of childhood. "If I'd been anyone else, I wouldn't know the look." "I do." I went out, put my hand on her back, and said no to him, not to her, but the difference got lost in the hum of a bar jukebox and a Thursday night in Houston. He said, "You don't get to decide my sister's heart." I said, "I get to decide my house." He said a word I won't post. I said a shorter one. Jess stood between us with her palms up like a cop stopping traffic. He walked away, laughing. We went home. We didn't yell. We made 2 cups of tea like we were in an ad for a better marriage. Jess said, "I hate that you're right," and then, "I hate that, I hate that." She cried. I didn't. My body had become of 4. Economy of tears. In the morning, she wrote on a post-it, "I choose you." She stuck it on the microwave. She meant it when she wrote it. The problem was, she also meant it when she texted her mom later, "I'll bring him socks." The problem was not socks. The problem was the muscle. The problem was the brain that made no feel like betrayal and yes feel like breathing. 2 weeks after that, she called from her mom's crying because Ryan had taken mom's debit card. I said, "Do you want me to come change her online passwords?" She said yes. I did it. Her mom hugged me and said, "You should have stayed away from this mess, but thank you," which is the most honest sentence anyone has said in this story. On the drive home, I realized the ache in my chest had a shape. It was our front door. I loved my wife. I liked our life. I could not be the guy who policed the door while she held it open with her foot. We separated in late September. Not dramatic. Paper, not fireworks. She moved into a 1-bedroom near 290 with a friend from school. We split the house proceeds after we sold in November because the market did that weird dip then bounce, and we caught the bounce by accident. We divided our pots and our pans and the plant that only likes the laundry room. We cried in the pantry on the last day because the pantry was where we stood on the first day of the house, eating HEB sushi off the top shelf before we had a table. We did not rescind the separation in the pantry. We just cried. We signed divorce papers 2 months later. Texas makes you wait. We waited. We didn't back out. We've texted twice since. Once when it froze and I asked if her pipes were wrapped. Once when she sent me a picture of a student's drawing of Ms. J's husband that still had my beard and our old house in the background, like kids believe in ghosts in happy ways. He's kind, the kid wrote. I cried in my car in the parking lot of a Kroger that isn't even mine now. I saw Ryan at a Valero in December. He didn't see me. He was talking to a guy in a lifted truck. He looked tired. I felt something like pity and something like nothing, and I got back in my car and drove away. I'm renting a little place off White Oak Bayou now. It smells like new paint and neighbor's laundry. I bought a secondhand table that looks like someone cut a tree in half and decided that was enough. I make eggs in the mornings and they don't stick. I run sometimes when the air's not soup. I meet my friend Will for crawfish when it's that season, tongues burning, lips numb, talking about soccer like we can slow time by naming it. If you're in a similar spot, the paper will not make it less sad. It will make it less chaotic. That's something. Your line in the sand isn't a sword, it's a fence. It keeps something safe. It will also keep some people out. Both might be okay. It's okay to choose your front door. Small Houston thing because I can't help myself. Get the spicy ketchup at Whataburger every time. It doesn't fix anything. It does make fries taste like you're at a picnic with people who don't want anything from you except to pass the napkins. I used to think family meant nobody falls. I think now it means nobody lies about the landing. Jess and I didn't fall on purpose. We didn't fall because we stopped loving each other. We fell because we loved two things we couldn't hold at once, her brother's endless week and our little brick house with a front door that needed closing. If anything improbably changes, I'll update. For now, I'm learning all the tiny adult things you only learn when your name is on only one lease. How to take a 3 a.m. thunderstorm and decide it's music. How to sit at the bar at Little Woodrow's alone and not look at your phone for a whole song. How to say no without apologizing and yes without asterisk. How to keep the spare key for yourself, not for emergencies that wear your last name. And yeah, if you're ever in Cyprus on a Sunday, go to Taqueria La Perla and get the barbacoa. Eat it in your car with the AC on blast like a local. For 10 minutes, you will not be a person in a story. You will just be a person with very good tacos. That counts.